If you're going to be a national historic site, this is how you do an entrance. You got plenty of room to turn in. You got plenty of room to stop and take a picture of the sign. You've got a little statue that kind of resembles the area. There was restrooms up there. There was parking. Fantastic. This nice little drive to more parking where you've got some signage about how far cities are. You've got to walk across this bridge that's paved. The sidewalk's paved. There's a wheelchair there. That's how you do an entrance to it. And hey, we're glad to have you on board on Roadside Oddities. We're at Fort Larned, Kansas, and about 6 miles west of Larned, Kansas. Kind of a remote area, but we are at the famed Fort Larned National Historic Site, which is one of the most well-preserved Western forts in the United States. This is also stop number 21 out of hopefully 433 national parks that I am planning to visit, and this one was nice. It was good. Forts are, hit or miss. In the other video about Old Ben's Fort, you saw that one. It was kind of in disrepair just because of a lot of structural concerns. Fort Larned, on the other hand, was just recently renovated or restored here in the last year or two, and so it's a must visit for me. Now, if you're curious about Fort Larned, the National Park Service says that it was just lies steps away from the Santa Fe Trail, and that soldiers met Plains Indians, European American and Hispanic teamsters, homesteaders, hide hunters, scouts, and railroad workers, and that U.S. Army regulars served with paroled Confederates, and that the fort also housed African Americans later known as Buffalo Soldiers who formed Company A of the 10th Cavalry. So quite a collection of folks that were around this fort. The post evolved from a rough contemporary camp set up in 1859 to guard the construction of Adobe Mail Station. And by 1867, it was a bustling soldier town. But not too long later, in 1878, it had become a near ghost town. The primary objective of the soldiers was to escort mail coaches and military supply wagons on the trail, and that their broader mission was to keep peace on the plains and take action when required. Now, the fort also hosted Indian agents for the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Plains, Apache, Kiowa, and Comanche tribes. And in 1867, peace commissioners appointed by Congress met at Fort Larned to plan the Medicine Lodge treaties. Okay, so a lot going on there in the history of the Western United States, and Fort Larned was right there in the middle of it. Now, the nice thing about visiting Fort Larned is, there's that little bit of a walk when you come across the bridge, but once you get to the actual fort, look at all the detail in these rooms. I mean, it is impressive as far as the amount of history that they have restored into the fort. And you can kind of see what the living situations were like for the officers. I've got a little video later in the video. We've got where the infantry stayed at. And just a fantastic visit if you're into history of the United States. Now, after this little walk around up here, I did head into the visitor center. Visitor center has been restored. Very fascinating. I've got a few photos video of the visitor center, the park ranger in there. More than happy to talk with you about the history of Fort Larned. You'll notice in the background there is no walls at Fort Larned. It was a fort with no walls, which is kind of a very interesting concept. They did have a river on the backside, but I believe I read that it was because, a direct attack on the fort was less likely, so there was no walls. Now here's inside the visitor center. As you can tell, everything looks brand new. and it certainly was. But lots of history on the Santa Fe Trail and the plains at that time when Fort Larned was very active. Those windows are kind of neat. They had those all over. So it's like as you were in the fort looking out, you would see soldiers or the daily fort life. As far as other people on this visit, when I got out there, there was I don't know, maybe 10, 15 people walking around. And this is kind of a unique artifact they've got. People have put in their initials or names over the years into the walls. And continuing the walk down the barracks, they had two sets of barracks here. There's some more of the names etched into the walls there. And then this one actually has kind of like the mess hall, I believe is probably what it was. And then some of their bunks and everything like that. It's like a mess hall. Literature there if you'd like to find out more about the infantry barracks. But it's just great to see, you know, when you visit one of these, the restored history in them. Sometimes when you go visit these forts or other areas, they're kind of missing a lot of stuff. Now this is actually I guess the backside. The cemetery was back here. There's shops. The new commissary is over here too. And then the blockhouse. But as you can see, it's very interactive. You can walk around. They did fire off a cannon while I was there. In like the blacksmith or, you know, area, they were in there working on different things like that. So I can recommend visiting Fort Larned enough. Great visit. Just another view of the parade grounds. The old commissary, quartermaster storehouse was all over here. Well maintained. All right, appreciate you. We'll see you on down the road at our next stop as we continue visiting all 433 national parks in the United States of America.